Hello and welcome to Support Life, a program focusing on social issues from a life-affirming perspective. My name is Alexandra Ryan and today my guest is Dominic Meese. Hello and welcome to the program, Dominic.
Thanks, Alexandra.
First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm 30 years old, married to a beautiful wife. I have a 5-month-old son who provides a lot of entertainment, a lot of hard work as well, but a lot of entertainment, a lot of joy. I'm a cradle Catholic, brought up. I'm one of 7 siblings. I've got 6 younger sisters. We're all raised Catholic, so yeah, I love sport. I'm a keen golfer. I don't play very well, but I love playing golf. I love footy. I love most sports really. I work in real estate, and that keeps me pretty busy.
Can imagine. Wow. And how did you get involved with the pro-life movement?
Basically, being raised as a Catholic, I've always had an interest in it, and I think with the trend of where our society is heading in terms of abortion laws all over the world, really, I keep a pretty keen interest in it. I sort of got into it a bit more in the last year or so. I was involved with a group called Catholic Voices Australia, and they're basically a lay Catholic group that aim to get the church's voice into the public square. So they put themselves out to the media to do interviews on TV and radio, and in print as well.
Fantastic.
Basically just on, if there's a big issue. It started about this time last year when the Pope resigned, and they put themselves out there and they were all over the TV for a couple of weeks, which was great. So I was involved with them for a while, did a lot of media training with them. Through that, I went to a conference here in Melbourne last year called the Catholic New Media Conference, which was fantastic, and I learned a lot of social media skills and a lot of media tools and skills for Catholic for evangelisation really.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I was thinking about starting a blog around that time. This was back in September, probably late August, early September. Actually, it was first week of September, I think, last year. And I decided then and there, it was a 2-day course, that I'll start a blog. I love writing. I love researching and writing. So I thought, what's the worst? It could be a flop. I don't lose anything. It could be really good. I'm still trying to get to there, but it's going okay. So I write a blog. I try and write once a week or once every couple of weeks on basically my views as a bloke on moral issues in today's news. And I try and get a subtle Catholic message across through my blog. Really, the aim is to engage a secular audience. For example, my schoolmates who aren't practising or aren't religious at all. So I try and get a good positive message across without sort of beating them over the head with the Bible.
That's right.
It's just a
gentle sort of approach.
That's right, yeah, just on big issues of the day. So, yeah, that's going really well at the moment. So I'm trying to promote that a bit more, and then, so through writing the blog and through Catholic Voices, I've taken a really keen interest in pro-life issues, and I tend to be writing. I don't know, I've fallen into a little niche in my blog where I'm writing a fair bit about pro-life and about abortion and the issues in that area in Australia and worldwide as well. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. A man of many talents.
Yeah, look, it keeps me busy. So, I think you need something outside of work, especially when my son was born 5 months ago. I couldn't play as much golf as I wanted. So I was at home with my wife helping her, and when she was sleeping, I thought, well, I'm going to start writing a blog. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I just started writing. And
so that's all from personal insights?
Yeah, basically. Yep. It's just I think what I'm hoping the sort of niche is that it's an alternate view to what you're fed from mainstream media from a young person, from a young guy who's married with a kid, rather than hearing the well-versed sort of left-wing political agenda of the media.
And I think that's so important, having that young male role model speaking out and, speaking the truth as well. Yeah,
that's right. And that's the aim. And look, it's going well. I think I've had a lot of, for example, I wrote a piece on traditional marriage and same-sex marriage. It was around about the time it was passed through the ACT before the High Court challenge. And I think I've got a few secular mates that I play golf with every week, and We had an email chain that week, probably there would have been 150 emails, I reckon, about same-sex marriage and about traditional marriage. And in the end, and this is like without boasting about myself, at the end, a couple of these guys said, you know what, I can't disagree with what you're saying. You're making good, valid points. It's logical. I never thought about it like that. And that's the aim. I'm not trying to convert people. I'm trying to give them an alternate way of thinking.
That's right.
And rather than, a lot of the time they say, oh, well, never thought about that. And I've always heard it like this. And I think, well, that's great, because you need two sides of any argument to understand, to form an opinion on anything. So, the aim was to...
I think it's having that courage to stand up, because it's going against mainstream, views. Sometimes you can be, really, just... I know with myself and friends, they sort of say, oh, how can you believe that? But like you said, you point out sometimes the obvious and they think...
And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I think for a lot of years I didn't have that courage, and now I've sort of found it, and it's starting to have, bear a little bit of fruit, which is good.
Are you involved in any other pro-life movements?
Not any movements, not any sort of formal movements. I've kept a very keen eye on the Section 8 debate in terms of doctors' conscience and moral conscience. And there's been I've been doing a lot of letters to the editor and writing blogs and having opinions on Twitter with, to politicians and what have you. So I think as well, having my son 5 months ago, really, I sort of, not that I didn't realise the beauty of young life, but it just hit me like a train when he was born, and I thought, us as a society, we're moving in my opinion, we're moving in the wrong way. And when he was born, I thought, wow, we've got to do something about this. So, hence the reason I'm not involved in any formal movements, but I'm trying to do my own thing. And look, I might be interested to do some, be involved with some formal movements down the track. Yeah,
great. And for our viewers, about the doctor's conscience, they're not allowed to have their opinion, or?
We're more than happy to go through this in more detail later in the interview, but basically there's a section in the Abortion Law Reform Act that doesn't really allow a doctor to have a moral conscience to not refer someone to an abortion. They are legally obliged to refer that couple to another doctor who then will perform the abortion or refer the abortion.
We might find out a little bit more about that after the break. You're watching Support Life. Stay tuned and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Alexandra, and today we're speaking with Dominic Meese. Before the break, we were talking about, Dominic, a doctor's conscience vote. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so basically it's a pretty big current issue in the pro-life area at the moment. Sort of for some background, it started sort of mid last year with a Sunshine doctor called Dr. Mark Hobart. He was a GP in Sunshine. He had a couple come to him and ask him for an abortion at 19 weeks pregnant. And he asked them, why they wanted an abortion, and they said, because we have a girl and we want a boy. So it was a gender-based abortion request. Dr. Mark Hobart, being a devout Catholic, from what I understand, not that really religion should play a huge part in a gender-based abortion request, but he refused them and said, look, I have a moral conscience against abortion in general, and particularly against a gender-based abortion request. He refused them. They then went and dobbed him in effectively to the Victorian Medical Board, who then did an investigation on Dr. Mark Hobart, and the investigation, as far as I'm aware, is still being held, and he faces a very real prospect of being deregistered as a doctor and losing his livelihood.
Oh, how sad.
So I mean, it's a very tough situation for him, but not just for him, but for all doctors, because Section 8 of the Abortion Law Reform Act specifically requires it gives you a moral conscience or a get out, supposedly on paper, but it doesn't really. What it says is that you can have a moral conscience to say no, but you must refer or pass that couple on to a doctor who will not object. So effectively you're loading the gun for someone else to pull the trigger. So while you may not specifically give them the abortion referral, you're playing a very large part. So it's a real attack on religious freedom and moral conscience.
Absolutely.
So that's sort of the background. It's been playing out. There's been, from that case and a couple of smaller ones, a really large public support for or against this sort of restriction of religious freedom and doctors' conscience and moral conscience.
Who decides that?
It's part of the Abortion Law Reform Act, which was brought into Victoria in 2008.
So the politicians are the ones calling the shots there.
Basically, yeah. So it's state law.
And that's probably a conscience vote by them.
Well, they actually had a conscience vote to restrict moral conscience, which is the ironic thing. So
that's very ironic.
That's right.
It's laughable.
It is. It's a shame, the whole thing. But basically, there's been a really big public. What's the word? There's been massive public support to try and repeal Section 8 of the Abortion Law Reform Act and to get rid of that issue for doctors. And it's gathering some momentum. I know that I think Jeff Shaw from State Parliament was tabling a petition just before Christmas to try and repeal Section 8. The State Liberal Party actually, they had a retreat, for want of a better word, down the coast before Christmas and to work out their policies and procedures, and they spoke about this issue, and they actually voted. It's now public state Liberal policy to try and repeal Section 8 as far as I understand it. So look, it's moving in the right direction. There's still massive resistance to it from pro-choice groups and from certain feminist groups. So look, there's a way to go to try and get that over the line, but compared to where we were maybe 6 months ago, it's gained a lot of support and it looks like it's heading in the right direction. But that's just one step. Ideally, we'd love to get rid of the Abortion Law Reform Act full stop, but
absolutely,
I mean,
this is tremendous.
This would be great to get rid of this issue for doctors who have a moral objection for whatever reason to referring an abortion.
Great. And where does your passion stem from, Dominic?
Basically, from having a young family now, a little son, I see the beauty of life. I said this earlier. My faith plays a big part in it, always has, but particularly since meeting my wife, I think both of us, to be honest, really went on a faith journey. In all areas of our faith, we were Catholic and we were massgoers, but we weren't as deep into our faith as we are now. So she's been absolutely fantastic to me as a wife and now as a mother to our child. And my faith plays a huge part because I just see the beauty of life. And
I think that's beautiful what you've mentioned about your wife and how highly you speak of her. I think in this pro-life movement, being such an example of family is so important as well. Absolutely. So that's a great witness. Well done.
Thank you. And also I think just in terms of where we're at as a society with this issue, it is a complex issue. As much as a lot of pro-life people sort of like to say it's not, it's black and white. Yes, it's black and white by the book, but it is very complex in terms of where we're at now as a society and where we're at from, or where the media sort of portray this issue to be. And the following it gathers through that. It is a complex issue, and I think it's a really hard line to sort of drum home this message, this pro-life message, but keep women on side who are either on the fence or staunchly against it.
Yes.
And it's really important that in this issue, I think that we always put the woman and the child first, and the women who are going through unwanted pregnancies, a lot of them feel, from my experience, from women I've spoken to, feel like they're backed into a corner and they're pressured. They think it's the only alternative. They think, I've got an unwanted pregnancy, my boyfriend, husband, partner, whatever it may be, is going to leave me if I don't have an abortion, or my parents are going to think less of me, or whatever the reason is.
They're sort of backed into a corner, you're saying?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. No doubt they feel like they're in a corner. We need to move, in my opinion, move away from that persona and getting women to sort of think, right, I am pregnant. what are my options? Because I don't just have one option. I have more than one option. You know, there's adoption, there's having a family's
That's
support
brilliant.
you through it. So
You've raised those different alternatives because some people might not be aware about those.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and a lot of the time they're not told about them. They go to an abortion clinic and the abortion clinic say this is your only option. So
Wow.
yeah, it's just important to let them know that there are alternate options and safe options.
Fantastic. That's great. You are watching Support Life. We'll take a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Alexandra Ryan and this is our guest Dominic Meese. Dominic, I hear you are starting a radio show.
Yep, there we are. We're trying to start. We were actually. I'll go back to the start. It was when I was at Catholic Voices Australia. A community radio station in the west of Melbourne approached Catholic Voices and said, "Would you be interested in starting up or having a radio strand of what they do?" My wife and I had been seriously considering starting a Catholic radio station in Melbourne, based on you may have heard of Catholic Answers Live.
Oh, yeah,
in the US, yeah. Mm-hmm. We listened to that a fair bit and we thought, look, this would be great to bring this to Melbourne or Australia and get a similar show here. So we were sort of planning on how would we start a radio station or a radio show, and it sort of just fell in our lap that they approached Catholic Voices, who then came to me and said, well, here's an opportunity for you to do your radio show. So, yeah, look, it's in the very, very early stages at the moment. I'm still getting trained up on how to use the studio. But basically the idea is it'll be my blog on radio. So we'll interview people, seek public feedback on the show and talk about issues that are relevant in the community and in the wider society and talk about, it'll be a Catholic show, so we'll be promoting a Catholic message. And again, it's just about providing an alternate way of thinking and an alternate view as opposed to what we're normally used to. So
that's really exciting.
It is. Look, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, we're still trying to work out who's going to host, how many we're going to have, who are our guests, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great way to pair up my blog, and we can have the radio, we can have podcasts and put it all together in a big social media bundle and promote it through Catholic circles and through the wider community and really try and get that, evangelisation and that message out to everyone.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
wow, I look forward to listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you any other advice for people who might want to get involved with the pro-life message?
Absolutely, yeah. At the risk of sounding controversial, I've got some pretty strong opinions on how pro-lifers sort of go about promoting the message of pro-life. While I completely agree with their message, I think in certain situations there's a counterproductive way of going about it. I spoke to a group of young kids at the Catholic Youth Festival maybe a month or two ago about this issue, and I said, look, it's all great being a witness to your faith and trying to evangelise however you may do that, but putting pictures up of botched abortions or getting on Facebook and calling people a murderer for having an abortion is, in my opinion, completely counterproductive. As I said earlier, we need to support these women that find themselves in these really, really tough situations. And a lot of them are unplanned. There are, of course, people that use abortion as a form of contraceptive or contraception.
Isn't that dreadful?
But a lot of women do find themselves, in a really difficult situation, and they need empathy and sympathy, and they need complete support, as well as being made aware of the options they do have. I find it counterproductive for pro-lifers to sort of throw the book at these women and back them into that corner. So I think it's really important that as a unified movement throughout Melbourne, throughout Australia, throughout the whole world, that we really, I think, change the approach in terms of how we talk to these women and how we approach the good message of life. So my advice would be to be really careful about what you put on social media. I see a lot on social media that I cringe at, and this is just my opinion.
That's great advice.
Yeah, be really careful what you write about. And we've got to remember as well, I think the stats now are 1 in 3 women in Australia have had an abortion.
Wow.
So when you're next sitting on a bus, have a look around and there might be 20 women on that bus, so 6 or 7 have had an abortion based on stats. So every time you talk to someone...
huge.
Absolutely.
I didn't realise that figure.
Yeah, it's incredible. So when you're talking to people, whether you're in the pub on a Friday night, whether, I know you're a school teacher, Alex, whether you're in the staff room talking to other women about, and if abortion does come up, I try and personally think, okay, this woman has had an abortion, whether she has or not. Yes. I think, right, for me, I'm going to talk to her like she has, because that makes me think completely differently. I won't shoot my mouth off about, how can people just murder their babies and so forth. I think
being sensitive.
You have to be sensitive because it's very, very likely that every woman, 1 in 3 have had it. So I think that it's important to show sympathy and to show care. Yeah,
and I think that's a really refreshing approach as well, showing that you're compassionate. You're going to, win people over. I don't know if win's the right word, but, show them that it's not, our way or your way.
Exactly.
It's what is best for the person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's contradictory at times as well. I mean, we promote a faith of compassion and sympathy and love, yet we don't show as much in certain situations. We don't show those traits. So and I think John Paul II, I can't quote him. I can't remember the quote, but he said a while ago when he was alive that we can't leave these women to themselves. They need sympathy and empathy. So if we can follow his lead,
absolutely,
we'd be going a long way to making a better.
He was surely a beautiful pope, wasn't he?
That's right.
And what are your long-term plans or aspirations in the pro-life movement?
I've got big ideas for myself. Whether they're over the top, they may be, but look, you can only hope to get somewhere. So I'm really looking forward to pushing my blog forward and the radio show and putting them together into one big bundle and seeing where that leads. And through that, really trying to raise awareness about about pro-life issues, and particularly other options for women that find themselves pregnant in unwanted pregnancies, as well as promoting that sympathetic and empathetic message that I think is really important to get to all women and to all people. So, and I'm probably drumming the same message, but we have to really think about what's best for these women, and we don't want to push them away, because we should want to be the first people they come to for support and guidance, because we can give them the truth.
Absolutely.
But if we're pushing them away with anger and aggressiveness, we're not going to get that message to them.
Well, as a woman, can I say, I think the way you go about things is just beautiful, and I think that's going to win over a lot of hearts and change people's mind in society.
Thank you.
So well done to you.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely wonderful having you on our show today.
Thanks, Alice.
Your insights, not only for myself, but I'm sure our viewers, have just been fantastic. I've learnt a lot. So thank you so much, Dominic, for giving us your time.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Support Life. We'll see you next week.